Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would start a new series which will be an accent guide. So I'm not like a complete expert at accents, but I think I'm okay and I can explain them. Today I will cover the Australian accent, how to do it, the different sounds. It will also be, say for example, if you're learning English you can't understand Australian accent. This will kind of help you understand the different sounds and how to try and understand the language, because you kind of have to understand it to be able to reproduce the accent. Often with accents it can be often like learning a language. I personally never really learn accents. I can just automatically do them. I don't know if that's... I guess not everyone can do this, but I can just do it without thinking about it. So when I have to actually explain, I have to actually think about it and kind of re-engineer it in my head. Of course it depends on what your goal is, how the accent will be, because you can, if you're just doing a funny impression, you're going to use a lot of stereotypes and things that people think about just as an association. If you want to just do an accent to be authentic, then you probably wouldn't be, like say for example you're acting or something like this, you would make it less stereotypical and more natural. So it really depends. You want to add more stereotypes, the more funny you want it to be. Of course, stereotypes can be insulting to some people. It generally depends. Okay, so firstly, let's cover the sounds of the Australian accent. It's mostly vowel sounds, so if you compare it to British English, which I will in this video, it's mostly the vowel sounds that change. So let's have a list of vowel sounds and let's see which ones are different. So some of these vowels are very different, some of them are very distinct and they are like a signature of the accent. Some of them are basically the same, so it really depends. You really want to focus on the ones that make it distinct, but it really depends how perfect you want to make the accent. So we're going to focus on the different vowel sounds. So let's start with the first one, just the ah sound. So in British English it's just simply ah, like cat or that. It's only slightly different in the Australian accent. It's just it, that, that, that. It's like at, it. It's very, very small difference, but it's slightly different. It can be quite difficult to get this like slight difference. That over there, that, that. It's very it more than at. Of course, it generally depends on the person. I'm just using a general Australian accent on how I hear the accent. So that's the first sound. Ah is eh. So next we have the single I sound, which is eh in British English. It, this. This is simply eat, these, e. It's kind of like an e sound almost. This is good, mate. This is great. So it's kind of like an E sound. Next we have the double O, the U sound. Again, this is very, very small difference. For example, British English we would say U. They would say book, book. It's very small. Look, look, look. It's really small of a difference. You could probably just ignore it to be honest, but that's the small differences. Now we get to the distinct vowel sounds, the ones you want to focus on. So the first distinct sound we have is the O sound. For example, British English we would say note, no. In the Australian accent it's no, note, O. So it's not O, it's O, O. So you want to, it's a very distinct sound. You almost can't do an Australian accent without this sound, because it's very distinct. It's like what you recognise the most. No, you don't know, mate. When you hear an Australian accent, it's very important, this sound. So it's not O, it's O, O, note. So it's O, O. Alright? Okay, the next distinct sound is the ite sound. So in British English, be kite, might, tight. In Australian, they would say might, tight, light. It's like an I sound. I, night, light. Again, very distinct sounds. So the out and the ite are very, very important to get right. It's almost impossible to do an Australian accent without using these sounds. So, out, out. And then we have two more that are just a bit different. So we have the oot sound, like flute, 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 oot, oot. It's really slightly different. So it's like, only if you, so it's just slightly different. So flute, flute, flute. It's really small difference. And the last one we have is the A sound, like may, or take, something like this. May, take, may. Try, try, tray, try. It's really slight differences. So lots of the vowel sounds are just slightly different, but the most important ones are definitely the O and the I sound. Okay, lastly, for the vowel sounds, we do have a combination vowel sound, which is when you have AR. So when we have AR, it changes a bit. So it's like ah, ah. In the Australian accent, the R sound is ah, ah. In a car, like this, for example, car, car. So it's another very, very distinct sound. Ah. It's not ah. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's a very distinct sound. So so it's probably the oat, the ite, and the ah sound that are probably the most important. So I was wrong. We actually do have one last vowel sound, which is the ow sound. For example, out or ouch or something like this. This is, so in British English, ow. In Australian English, it's ow, out, out, get out. So out, out, out. So it's ow, ow. This is also a very distinct sound. So the only actual, so for consonants, as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure they're all the same except for the T sound. So the T can basically just be a bit softer. How that sounds, it's like, for example, cat, ket, ket. It's like a t sound. That, that. It's like, it's almost like you almost don't, it's very soft. Other than that, there's almost no difference between most of the consonant sounds and the English accent. So just as a summary, I'll read out all of the vowel sounds in British pronunciation, then in the Australian equivalent. So firstly we have a, pat, flat, pet, flat, I, fit, pick, feet, peak, a, pet, scent, pet, scent, cut, jump, cat, jump, put, book, put, book, pot, dog, port, dog, about, out, about, out, car, car, or car, boy, voice, boy, voice, eat, heat, ate, hate, plate, late, plate, light, note, phone, note, phone, pet, scent, pet, scent, clear, fear, clear, fear, care, fair, care, fair, find, bite, find, bite, tour, pure, tour, pure. So right, so now I'll just give you an example of how I do the Australian accent. Not perfect by any means, but it's alright, I think. But you just want to focus on the O sound, the I sound, These really are distinctive and it'll make you sound very Australian. So I hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time in my next accent guide.